To all the stories, the Senate is asking all tiers of government to declare a state of emergency on unemployment across the country and implement a mechanism to create jobs for the youth population. The resolution was reached after consideration of a motion on the escalating rate of unemployment in the country, sponsored by Senator Ike Ekweremadu. Senator Ekweremadu lamented the large number of graduates from higher institutions in the country, describing the situation as a time bomb waiting to explode. Other lawmakers commented on the matter, advised the federal, state and local governments to revitalize existing industries and initiate a sustainable employment fund for the payment of stipends to unemployed Nigerians until such persons secure employment.
A very fruitful observation of a report published by National Bureau of Statistics in 2019 stated that Nigeria's unemployment rate stood at 23.1% of the workforce in the third quarter of 2019. Further note that a statement created to Senator Chris Ngige, Minister of Labour and Productivity, and published in Premium Times of 9th November 2019, declared that Nigeria's unemployment rate will hit 33.5% by 2020. We know that unemployment is one of the major reasons why insurgency, kidnapping, armed robbery, cyber crimes, and other vices are in increase.
Let's get more insights on this. I'm now being joined by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Employment, Senator Ben Uwajimogu, and also a legal practitioner, Mr. Sam Amadi. I'd like to welcome you both to the program. And let me begin with you, Senator Uwajimogu. The Senate has asked the federal government to initiate a sustainable unemployment fund for the payment of living stipends to unemployed Nigerians until they secure employment. How sustainable is this initiative?
Well, yesterday, you recall that the former Deputy Senate President, Ekweremadu, brought up a motion which was passed in the Senate. Part of the recommendation was that the government should look into the possibilities of providing stipends for unemployed workers. I believe that is what the government is already trying to do with the social safety programs which the government is already doing, trying to pay as many people as they can. But the fact remains that the government does not have the resources at this point in time to tackle the number of people who are unemployed in Nigeria. So it's something that needs to be taken care of. I'm not too sure whether this was accommodated in the budget of 2020, which was just passed a few days ago. So it's a resolution, and I believe that the government will look into it.
All right, let's go to you, Mr. Amadi, a public affairs analyst as well. What do you think lies the major shortfalls? Is it the fact that we don't have the resources, our policies inadequate? What should we be doing?
Well, I think we have to deal with the underlying costs of unemployment, double digits, of course, shrinking productive capacity, low investment over time on industrial capacity, lack of rural industrialization. But essentially, agriculture and agro-business has been the biggest supplier of labor, manufacturing. But today, we want to leapfrog into innovative economy, ICT. They can create wealth, but they will have limited impact on employment. So government needs to first start with a holistic program on expanding the productivity base of the country. The Minister of Finance was right. We said that our crisis is not a debt crisis, but a productivity crisis. We're not earning a lot. We're not growing. The economy has to expand so that private sector, new startups can employ people, especially cottage industry. That's what the Asians did, and that's why they have growth with less inequality. But as a palliative, as a short-term measure, the idea of a Senate declaration of emergency is the right way. Again, good idea, but not financially sustainable. Like the Senator said here, you are facing severe fiscal challenges and crunch. Except government can perhaps increase corporate tax in a way so that out of that it can get some funds to have a sinking fund for unemployment payment. But that also has disincentive for investment, for expansion. Business people don't like to pay more. So really the trick now will be how do we get the money? You know, we have already raised VAT. We are already overtasking, as it looks like, the middle class. So where can government get more revenue to sustain a large payout to over 23% of workforce that are unemployed? So I think that's a challenge. But in terms of good policy, it looks nice to provide some kind of support for those who are not employed. I might not be employed, going by the way the economy is growing at less than 2 digits or slightly above 2 digits. So you wouldn't expect much capacity growth in this year. So really, intervention is necessary, but can we sustain it? So my view would be, let's have this as a good intention, but let's go back to unleashing a productive economy. Growth all over the world, unemployment is a problem, but it's more so in shrinking economies like our own. That's not small industrial sector, low agro-tech, agro-based employment, and of course, we are moving to services and innovation economy, which we employ less than industrial industries. Again, power, energy.
Well, we will come back. We'll come back to continue this discussion, and we'll also come back to you, Senator Uwajimogu, to get your thoughts. But also, still to come on the program, Abdulrasheed Maina's son goes to Kuje prison as Maina's sister stands as witness in court. More details after the break. And back to our discuss on the state of emergency over unemployment. We've been talking with our guest, Chairman Senate Committee on Employment, Senator Ben Uwajimogu, and a legal practitioner, public affairs analyst, Mr. Sam Amadi. Thank you so much. Let's go to you now, Senator Uwajimogu. Conclusively, looking at what the Senate has done, declaring a state of emergency, doesn't it just go beyond declaring a state of emergency, seeing as the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, had in April disclosed that Nigeria's unemployment rate will reach 33.5% by 2020. So it shows that there's really a lot to be alarmed. And when you also look at the social investment initiatives you've talked about, they mentioned 12.8 million beneficiaries of those initiatives. But this clearly shows that we need to do a lot more and we need to work faster. So how holistic and timely is this coming from the Senate? And what more do you think the Senate and the federal government put together can do to ensure that unemployment is a thing of the past?
Well, the Senate didn't just declare a state of emergency. The Senate took other resolutions. Part of it was, first of all, that we're going to review our educational facilities. Are we actually educating our children on teaching them entrepreneurship? Are we giving them, are they acquiring skills, in the educational institutions where they attend? These are, issues that will address unemployment, because part of the problem we have is that our entrepreneurship is not growing. Are we also providing venture capital? Our banks, for example, are not, the financial institutions are not lending money, for medium and small scale enterprises. So part of those resolutions, we ask the government to ensure that, banks now, will lend money to the real sector, which is the medium and small scale enterprises, because we believe that it is those small cottage industries that can begin to employ the people, and then, get the states and local governments to revive, industries that are moribund. If you go around the country today, there are thousands of factories that have been built, thousands of factories that even equipments are lying waste, and none of it, is producing. And again, the Senate last week on Monday, the Senate President also declared an emergency on power, which is a major issue, in productivity in this country. A lot of our factories cannot produce because of lack of energy. The amount of money that people spend on, powering their factories and powering their business premises
All right, I beg your pardon, Senator.
Major
Let's quickly hear from Mr. Madi as his concluding thoughts now. Is our population a major problem as well, seeing as the speed it is growing, the fact that we don't have a proper census? Do we keep relying on other people's figures to manage our resources and for the unemployed? What should we be doing timelessly now?
Well, I think population could be a blessing. I mean, the youth bulge could translate to productivity if, like the senator says, you are also matching skills. The problem with skill mismatch, our education system should also be training for the industry. And what they do across the world is to what they call industry and next training. So if you have a growing population of young people and they're properly educated for the market, and the education interfaces with industry so that you are training people for the industry. Don't forget we are now in a globalized world where talent hunt is global. So companies in Nigeria and multinationals are recruiting outside Nigeria. That's one thing we can do. The second thing we can do, it talks about entrepreneurship. Yes, we should be deliberate about skilling our people to be entrepreneurs, but also matching them with grant and also dealing with some of the bottlenecks in our systems against startups. But beyond all this, I think the central bank interventions on agro-business is critical because if you look at construction and agriculture, they're going to employ more people. So with this new investment coming into agriculture, with all these borrowings, the Minister of Power and the Minister of Works and Housing should focus on incentivizing these companies to employ more. Policies help manufacturers, these companies to employ. So there should be a deliberate attempt to resort more to incentive. If you employ more local content, if you employ more people, you get some benefit from it.
We'd like to appreciate your time.
There must be a strategic way of looking at the comprehensive plan to drive unemployment.
Thank you so much for your analysis and insights. Senator Ben Uwajimogu and Public Affairs Analyst Sam Amadi, thank you so much for joining us.